the cultural pulse of entrepreneurship, which is considered one of the major pillars to understand when it comes to entrepreneurship. I called it the cultural pulse simply because in entrepreneurship there is not a possibility, but there is the certainty that there will be a lot of display of behavior that is marked by the culture of the individuals. So my name is Dr. Houda Jorio, and I'll be actually giving you this lecture about cultural entrepreneurship, or mainly the points or the concept to put in mind while dealing with entrepreneurship. To begin with, of course, here we have entrepreneurship being deeply shaped by cultural values and societal structures. And we're going to be learning how trust, individualism, family roles, and historical traditions all influence how and why people start businesses, people we encounter, people we deal with, the type of transactions, the type of products and services that we want to put into the market, and even the type of ideas that are also shaped by the culture. So our agenda is going to look as the following. We will start by discussing the cultural values and norms and how they differ between different type of countries and or cultures, of course. Then we're going to talk about the societal trust and network, the impact of historical and institutional influences on entrepreneurship, migration and diaspora effects, cultural entrepreneurship in its actually clearer way, and then we're going to discuss how societal influences, what are the societal influences that we happen to see in entrepreneurship. So when we talk about cultural values and norms, we're going to discuss 4 different major points. The first one is individualism versus collectivism, and that's actually a concept that has been brought by a scholar when it comes to in organizational behavior. Here, we're talking about the difference in cultures that value individualism achievement, and we can give an example of the UK and United States. They are individualistic countries. Canada, however, although it's located on the north side of the US, it is actually more of a collectivist country. And that depends on 2 factors. It depends on the system of the governments that is being run by those countries, and the type of migration that they have adopted, the system of migration that they have adopted within those countries. Bottom line, when it comes to United States and Canada, there is a difference in terms of individualism and collectivism, simply because in Canada there is the community rule that are imposing itself on the country, versus USA, which is 100% individualistic country. They tend to foster those actually societies, and we're talking about societies that value individual achievement. They tend to foster more entrepreneurial risk-taking. In contrast, collectivist society, they emphasize group harmony, which can hinder or support entrepreneurship depending on the context. And it doesn't mean that entrepreneurship does not work well within those countries. It just means that entrepreneurship is being influenced by the collectivist mindset. If we want to do good, we would like to choose the good for everybody. The next point is power distance. And here we're talking about societies with low versus high power distance, where hierarchy is less rigid, versus in others, it's seen, is viewed, is felt. And those actually people may feel more empowered to challenge norms and start businesses, while high power distance cultures, they discourage this kind of initiative. It means what? And not to jeopardize or to actually put wrong words in societies, the Arab world is more of a power distance. And it's done for a reason, because we have, again, there are values that are connected to each other. So we are more of a high power distance because the hierarchy is seen as respected and it's felt in all its measures. In other societies, hierarchy does not even count. They are more into the horizontal set of hierarchy. Low power distance culture, however, where hierarchy is less rigid, they encourage innovation, and challenge to authority is a key trait for entrepreneurs. It means what? They are giving more power to people, no matter what the hierarchy is about. The third point is the uncertainty avoidance. And here it's the word speaks for themselves. There are people who are avoiding the uncertainty and others who are actually who go for the uncertainty. And when we talk about entrepreneurship, and I'm sure that you have been exposed to the subject at the beginning, entrepreneurship is all about high risk. And cultures that are more comfortable with uncertainty, like the Netherlands and Sweden, they have higher rates of innovative entrepreneurship because they are risk takers in its sense, and they value risk adverse cultures. They may prefer stable employment. It doesn't mean that there is less entrepreneurship or entrepreneurs or innovative ideas, but the rate is clear because some cultures are high risk takers while others are not. Low uncertainty avoidance cultures are more comfortable with risk, making them fertile ground for startups and experimentation. They try, and those are the cultures where you start a business and it may work, it may not work, it doesn't hurt, doesn't harm. Government can support and give you other actually means or tools to get started again. They make it easier for individuals to handle culture or to handle entrepreneurship, as a way of life, which is in its essence, it is actually a different style of life. But for cultures that have high uncertainty avoidance, it hinders a little bit people from getting started. And people who go for uncertain situations are the high risk taking people. And of course, there is a calculated risk behind that as well, except that we're talking here more about the initiative. The next point is the cultural narrative and identity. And here, of course, we're talking about entrepreneurship being heavily tied to cultural identity. For example, immigrant communities, they often engage in entrepreneurship just as a way to navigate economic barriers while preserving cultural heritage. They are the type of people in different countries that do not like by choice, by the fact of not being actually led or managed by other structures, they like to build their own. And those actually, of course, they make sure that they do it so they can preserve their identity. And for example, Asian women in the United States are known by massage businesses. I would say Lebanese in Canada are known by sales. They are good in sales, so they do actually real estate, and they actually big machinery and things like that. So they actually, those people, they stick to their identity in order to prove themselves in other countries. The next point is about the social trust and network, like I have mentioned in my outline. When we talk about trust, we're talking about high trust societies versus low trust societies. High trust societies, they tend to have more vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystems. The ecosystem in itself, it's helping them build this trust. Trust reduces transaction cost, means that you believe in something, you believe in your idea, and the government supports, and it encourages collaboration and makes it easier to form partnerships. And this point is a bit related to the risk-taking and the uncertainty avoidance thing as well. If we think deeply about it, they're all linked: individualism, power distance, uncertainty avoidance, cultural narrative or identity. They are all linked in a way to support and or to make it I would say slower for entrepreneurship transactions to move on. And here, this point, I say it and stress about it. This actually does not come only from the individual. It comes from the system itself. It means that countries and government systems and the ecosystem of entrepreneurship has to build this trust. Thank God. For Moroccan societies, it's very clear. They are pushing very hard this entrepreneurship mindset into different types of people. We're talking women, youth, professionals. Means that there are lots of initiatives that the government is installing and is working on in order to instill this trust among people. We also have the family and community support, and in many cultures, especially in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, family, and we know it, plays a central role in funding, staffing, and supporting new ventures. This can be both a strength and a constraint. I would say it, and it's not only a personal opinion, and I hope we'll be able to share more thoughts if we get to have this recap session. We'll be able to discuss it in a broader view. And I think I have put in some questions about it at the end of every lecture. And here we're talking about how family nowadays, they support entrepreneurship in a way. You make sure that you put your kids into higher education with the idea of them getting started on their own businesses. Means that you pile them up with all the skills needed and competencies in order for them to get started with their own businesses. Third point is the historical and institutional influences, and that's actually something only attributed to North African countries and Asia. Why? Because we have roots, we have history, we have colonial legacies, and I call it legacies because it is actually legacies. We have the former British colonies that have stronger property rights and legal frameworks that support entrepreneurship compared to others. And of course here, the legal system makes sure that there is a positive influence when it comes to entrepreneurship. And then we have the religion and ethics. Religious teaching can shape attitudes toward wealth, work, and risk. Like the Islamic finance principles, they influence how Muslim entrepreneurs approach investment and debt. It doesn't mean that they don't encourage it, but they encourage it in their own ways, and they making it simpler for people to adopt ideas when it comes to entrepreneurship. And there is an ecosystem help when it comes to this part. And then we have the migration and diaspora effect. Second generation, we're talking about North African countries, immigrants, they often inherit entrepreneurial tendencies from their parents' home cultures, even when raised in different societal systems. And this blend of cultural influences can lead to high rates of business creation, is true, because you make sure that, for any generation that has been born and raised in a country and actually came back to the home country, or even in that host country, they make sure that they actually adopt or go back to the roots. And here comes the family impact that is very important as well. And we mentioned the example of Asian and other cultures that do adopt this migration effect. Blend of cultural influences, I love this because entrepreneurship in itself is a blended cultural setup, has a blended cultural setting. That's the best way to meet people from different places, the best way to encounter and deal with people from different cultural sets, because it enables a fluid interaction, an open ground to a new market. And with today's international entrepreneurship, we don't produce locally, we produce globally, we manufacture globally, we serve people globally. Thanks to the internet and the technology that we live in, we're making sure that everybody has a taste of different cultures. That's from one side. From the other side, talking about the raw materials, there is a big influence of culture when it comes to bringing up the raw materials. Today's Gen Z are highly exposed to different cultures, and they know a lot better than we did at their age when it comes to other cultures. Why? Because there is locally blend of different cultures, and they are learning from this actually blend, which encourages entrepreneurship. Cultural entrepreneurship is the concept that referring to how entrepreneurs use cultural narratives, symbols, and identities to create meaning and value in their ventures. It means that a Moroccan entrepreneur may market homemade Ramadan, I would say sweets, not just as a snack, but as a symbol of heritage and hospitality. And every time we are exposed to a product or a service from a different country, we make sure that there is some cultural touch into it, and we feel it. There is a cultural touch into it, and that's a pride. I think that's really a pride. Like, if you encounter people from different countries and they start talking to you about their product or their service, they make you feel like it's their own. It may not be their own. They have not, but just because it's Moroccan or it's Algerian or it's Tunisian or it belongs to them, and that's actually puts in their speech or in their way of talking about it as their identity, and that's a natural thing. That's by birth, that's a natural thing. People are proud. Of course, that does not mean that we should consider cultures, and I should have said it in the beginning, as something we adopt, but something we get adapted to. Cultural norms, we are adapted to them, and we're not supposed to judge them. Not to actually feel that your culture is superior to others. But there is high acceptance. Entrepreneurship is a school that teaches this high acceptance by nature. The next point, which is the last one, is about societal influences on entrepreneurship, like the education system, like the legal and institutional framework, like the economic history and class mobility, and the gender roles and social norms. Some of those, we're going to touch on them on the next course, which is the gender roles. Now, when we talk about the education systems, we have societies that promote creativity by nature, problem solving, critical thinking. They tend to produce more entrepreneurs, which is the case for Morocco. Every single education system now it's seen in all higher education, and some actually middle schoolers or high schoolers, they have already adopted this system in a way you actually and I've encountered it in actually high school. They think about an idea, and you tell them, let's see how you'll be able to sell this product or service to me. And they just do it in a play role system, whatever. But actually, higher education now is highly focused on teaching entrepreneurship and giving it actually more structure, in a way that people, kids now, Gen Z, it's not the fact that as we know them, or as everybody talks about them as lazy and dependent on technology. The opposite. As who teach the Gen Z, they have a lot of potential. They are really change makers. They are really change agents, and that's what we have to grasp out of this Gen Z. Conversely, for other societies, they have rigid and test-focused education. It's actually stifle entrepreneurial ambition. So give them more freedom. Make sure that they get to express themselves. They get to know their why and that's actually the bulkiest part of it. They get to know who they are and what they want. And entrepreneurship, and what's great about it, as we're talking now to agents of transformation, give them the possibility to communicate and make them be proud of their curiosity. Okay, and curiosity brings ambition, and ambition brings real things to life. Make them love entrepreneurship via passion, knowing what they like first. The next point is the legal and institutional framework, where we have supportive policies, ease of business registration, take off the red tape, make sure that they have access to funding, and if not access to funding, access to people who will help them, who will buy some shares, who will actually invest in their business. And we're talking about here the three: family, friends, and fools. Societies with strong institutions that push this type of businesses and low corruption levels, they tend to have higher rates of entrepreneurship. So make sure that as change agents, you pinpoint the fact that there is actually a legal and institutional framework that is behind every culture that is prospering in terms of entrepreneurship. And the next point is the economic history and class mobility in regions with histories of trade, migration, or colonialism, which is the case of North African countries. Entrepreneurs, they often emerge as a survival strategy or a path to upward mobility. This is how we want to make sure we make a change, because we've been through some colonialism that has pushed people to think different, to grasp the best out of who we are, to make sure that we display our history in a different fashion. So, and here we're talking about societies that are rich in trade, migration, and colonialism. They don't want to stick to working in collaboration with, but they want to make sure that they are creating some type of independent lifestyle. The last point within this lecture is about the gender roles and social norms, and it's actually considered as also the start of the next one. Societal expectations around gender, age, and class can either enable or restrict who is seen as legitimate entrepreneur. Of course, here we're gonna talk about the female societies and the male societies, and that's another issue where it's gonna get us started into our next lecture. But what we should grasp out of this is that there are social norms, of course, and there is the difference that we're not supposed to take it as a difference, but as a challenge between male and female, between young and old, between special class of individuals. And those differences are challenges, means that we have to take advantage of us having those differences, rather than just like having a heterogeneous group of individuals. That's actually a plus for entrepreneurship. So understanding these roots, it helps explain why entrepreneurship looks different around the world, and why local context matters so much when launching a business. So there is a ground field of a big lecture called Cultural Entrepreneurship that we have exposed briefly in this course, that explores how entrepreneurs have shaped or are shaping, and are shaped also by cultural production, like media and art. And these ventures, they redefine cultural norms and create new markets by blending creativity with commerce. So thank you for listening. And our next lecture is gonna be based on that last point, as I told you, which is gender and youth. Thank you. And by the way, I have added some discussion questions. Sorry, before I close up. In what ways? These are points to think about in case we have the recap session, which would be a great way. And besides this, we're going to be meeting, inshallah, face-to-face, where we can discuss those in greater detail. So in what ways can culture be both a product and a driver of entrepreneurship? And how can cultural entrepreneurs balance authenticity with innovation? And what are some examples of successful cultural entrepreneurship in your country or region that you would like to share? How does globalization affect local cultural entrepreneurship? Does it help preserve or dilute culture? There is a big discussion into this point. And in what ways can cultural entrepreneurship be a tool of sustainability and development? So we'll be able to discuss those points as we meet, or we get to do the recap session. Thank you very much.